So I first heard about The Last Campfire at the PC Game Show reveal back in June of 2020. And frankly, with everything that's happened since, I kind of forgot about it.
What the f*** was that?
So I think you'll understand what I mean when I say just how refreshing it was for me to escape all the drama and the chaos in the world and just rally behind this adorable little thing for a few hours. Solving puzzles, exploring a mystical world accompanied by a pleasant soundtrack, and a charming storybook visual style. This is just one of those games that epitomizes the very notion of escapism, something that I think we still cherish in our gaming communities despite what some people might want you to think. So if you were not already aware, The Last Campfire is a Hello Games production, the little engine that could team behind the infamous No Man's Sky, a studio that has been praised to Andromeda and back for their miraculous comeback. Winning Best Ongoing Game at the most recent Game Awards, Sean Murray and his talented team of engineers spent the last 4 years painstakingly fine-tuning and building upon a shell of a game that launched in 2016 to universal criticism of galactic gamer rage proportions.
Will I get bored playing this game?
No.
That is not an exaggeration. Now, as a casual fan of No Man's Sky, I do appreciate the aesthetic and what they were able to achieve over time with scale and immersion. And if I had a VR headset, that's probably all I would be playing. But honestly, I still think it's lacking some key gameplay mechanics, like alien taming and hunting aliens and transporting them from planet to planet and—
Wait a minute!
Okay, I just want Ark in space. Can somebody give me Ark in space for the love of God? The Last Campfire, a game that, unlike their ambitious space opera, at least from the few trailers I had seen prior to playing the game, seemed to be a relatively familiar indie puzzle adventure experience. I've always adored games like Hob and Eco, which, by the way, is a diamond in the rough, a game that absolutely blew me away with not only its clever puzzle designs and hauntingly beautiful environments, but just the simplicity of the gameplay. The emphasis on navigation and progression over combat, the minimalist Giorgio de Chirico-inspired aesthetic. I know Fumito Ueda is working on some secret new project at the moment, but I would love if somehow they found a way to remaster this game on PS5. It's that good of a game, and if you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. Also, go check out Jacob Geller's YouTube channel. He has a fascinating breakdown of Ueda's architecture and design, and it's well worth your time if you're a fan of the game. Now, mind you, I was not searching for this kind of nostalgia trip when I sat down to play The Last Campfire. This was one of those random browsing purchases when you're desperately trying to consolidate your Steam wishlist into a single purchase and you can't because there's just too many of them, so you hop on over to the Epic Store for the hell of it, and then boom, there it is right there on the home screen, and you're like, oh, I forgot about this game, I didn't know it was out yet. Okay. Before I bury the lead, let me just preface the rest of my review here with a fairly important bit of information. A before you buy warning, if you will.
Uh-oh.
This is a phone game.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Yeah, so I had no idea this game was literally built from the ground up as a mobile experience with a focus on touchscreen mechanics, but it didn't take me long to notice. The very first puzzle in the game requires you to move these golden blocks around in a way that is clearly designed for finger swiping on an iPhone. Out of curiosity, I did some brief internet sleuthing and found this quote by Sean Murray. With Joe Danger, we'd come from doing a console game, and we rebuilt it pretty much completely to make it feel at home on the phone. This time around, I think we're at a point where the controls feel really intuitive and at home on a touchscreen. In a separate interview via The Verge, he says, "We call it a Hello Games short, like Pixar shorts. It's a way to foster creativity and new voices in the studio. I love this idea. Pixar shorts are fantastic little bite-sized nuggets of creativity, and that is exactly how I would describe the appeal of The Last Campfire. Now, I played this on a PC, and the mouse and keyboard controls were fine. You can move around with the WASD, or you can simply left-click your way through the entire game as you would tapping on your iPhone. Despite how intuitive the game feels, rotating platforms and sliding puzzle pieces into place, I had a bit of a hard time not noticing the awkward appeal of playing this game on a PC. It just feels a bit off, and I feel like a console purchase, perhaps Nintendo Switch, or even the iOS store in this case, might be a better play here for those of you who end up watching this review and deciding to pick up the game. Now, the core gameplay loop in The Last Campfire is that of moving through an isometric puzzle gauntlet. There is no traditional platforming in this game. There is no jump button. There is no stamina meter. There is no health bar. There are literally no enemies in this game. I don't know about you, but what I just described has absolutely no impact, in my opinion, on how fun a game is. I played the game Journey twice in one day when I bought it, and that game has zero combat. I referenced Eco in my introduction, and while there is occasional moments of quote-unquote combat, the core gameplay loop is puzzle solving and navigation. The Witness, arguably the most brilliant game I've ever played in my entire life, is a literal island of puzzles, and that's it. That's the game. All that being said, I want to talk about Hello Games and their approach to the indie puzzle genre. Let's start with the gameplay, or rather the puzzles themselves. These were a lot of fun. Were they challenging? Not necessarily. A few of them really did give me a hard time, but the majority of them were fairly straightforward. Actually, I think the Breath of the Wild shrines are a good comparison here because, well, let me just show you. Okay, you can give me some credit for the fancy out-of-context editing here, but I'm not really exaggerating the similarities. There's glowing blocks, a lot of them, that you move around with a magnet, movable staircases and platforms that raise and lower depending on the layout of the room. I know these design tropes are not exclusive to either of these games, but it just feels like the inspiration is a bit too familiar. But if you're worried that this is the entire game, don't be. Sooner rather than later, the more unique qualities of The Last Campfire begin to manifest, and the game presents to you more interesting challenges, like this steampunk-oriented puzzle which requires you to arrange these missing pipes in a certain order to power these generators, or this section of the game with a stone map that shares some magical connection to a fog maze nearby. Lost map fragments are scattered throughout, and the maze begins to make more sense as you return the fragments and complete more of the puzzle. And then there's pigs. And this giant pig. I don't want to spoil their purpose for those of you who haven't played it, but they do offer a fun break from the monotony of the more traditional puzzle-solving segments in the game. But why are you here? If this is just a 6-hour loop of Zelda shrines, then what the fuck? Well, it's not a 6-hour loop of Zelda shrines. The lore here is not deep, but it is present at all times, and is quite charming in its effort to make you care about your journey and the world around you. This is Ember. Ember is a beacon of hope, and as you progress through the game, you begin to notice that there is little hope to be found here. And that is where you come in. The characters you interact with, many of them are lost, abandoned, lonely. They are referred to in the game as the Forlorn, and you are here to try and help them recover their sense of purpose. Some are unreachable and do not want to be helped, which is frankly a bit depressing, as I would have liked to help them, but that is very representative of our limitations and inabilities to simply help everyone in need. Some are more willing to invite you in, and it is here that you must help them confront their tormented memories, which manifest as the various puzzles that I mentioned before. When their despair is eventually purged by the embers of your perseverance and hopeful nature, they are liberated from their forlorn petrification and will return with you to the local campfire, a symbol not only of hope, but of community and fellowship. Each region of the game presents you with the burden of guiding these helpless souls back to the community campfire. When all 7 forlorn in the region have been united again in their now emboldened solidarity, the pathway forward opens up and you may move to the next region. So as you can see, the context here is the metaphor, one of hope and healing, and overcoming whatever difficulties that may otherwise seem overwhelming to us. We've all been forlorn at one point or another, and the embers in our lives, friends, family, they are important to us, and The Last Campfire does a really good job at utilizing the puzzle gaming genre itself to convey this endearing perspective. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think this game has some problems. But most, if not all, of the concerns or issues I had with this game, its brevity, its repetition, its lack of challenge, limited mobility, these are not valid reasons in and of themselves to avoid playing this game, given what I just told you about the development and its conceptual obligations and aspirations. I mean, I haven't even mentioned the fact that this game was made by a team of 3 people. I don't know, I wanted something more from this game. I appreciated the world building and the gameplay and the narrative, but I wasn't really blown away by any of it. The soundtrack is okay, it's noticeably there, and I think it parallels the tone and themes of the game quite well, but it doesn't hit me. And also, the narration in The Last Campfire was a bit of an issue for me.
Ember was terrified but tried not to show it. The giant's bird spoke softly. Another little Ember. Speak, little one. Do not fear. The bird is a friend.
I don't want to knock the voice actress. I think she has a beautiful voice, but there's just a distracting amount of dialogue, and it doesn't help that the cutscenes have very little effort put into them, with generic speech bubbles and the awkward and unnecessary descriptions of exactly what is happening on screen.
The old gate was locked. Ember placed the key in the lock and slowly began to turn it.
Like, did I need to hear her tell me that? I'm almost wondering if the game would have been better off without narration at all. And honestly, maybe I'm nitpicking here. I've seen other reviews of this game and nobody really mentions the narration. I just thought I would point it out because it just distracted me personally. Unfortunately, and I hate to put it this way, but I was essentially on autopilot for most of my playthrough, and it was a fun time. I just never really felt fully immersed in it. Again, as I said before, I do recommend playing this game if you're a puzzle adventure connoisseur, or if something I said in this review appeals to you in one way or another, then go for it. I think you'll have a great time with it. And I do think Hello Games should continue to experiment with smaller games like this, and maybe even hire some more developers to make sure that attention is being paid to some of these issues. I'm not in the loop with their 2021 plans for No Man's Sky, so I can't really comment on that, but I do think the studio has a bright future ahead of them. And by the way, this is my first game review or long-form video of any kind, really, so if you had a good time with it, or if you have any advice or criticisms, feel free to comment below. I would love to have a chat with you. I do plan on making more content like this in the near future, so I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and share this video with anyone who you think might enjoy watching it.